The Galactic Concordium sent their largest fleet to Earth, expecting a grand conquest. They found a planet abandoned for centuries. Confused, they hailed every human frequency. No response. Then, a single message crackled through the void, a human voice, half amused, half bored. "Oh, you guys are serious? All right then. Buckle up." And just like that, the deadliest war in the galaxy began, with a shrug. The war declaration came through every known frequency, a formal decree echoing from the heart of the Galactic Concordium. By order of the Supreme Chancellor, the species designated humans are hereby declared enemies of the galaxy. Your refusal to submit, your defiance of order, and your chaotic presence shall be purged. Surrender immediately or be eradicated. The message repeated on a loop, broadcasting across every system, every colony, every outpost. It was meant to be terrifying. It was meant to break morale before the first shot was even fired. But to Elias Cade, it was just another loud voice in a crowded bar. He took a slow sip of his whiskey, smirking as the message crackled through the old speakers above the counter. The patrons barely paid it any mind. A few bounty hunters exchanged glances, some alien mercs grunted in amusement, and the bartender, a four-armed, rock-skinned brute, rolled his multiple eyes before muting the feed. "Well," rumbled a voice beside Elias, thick with amusement. "Your kind has finally pissed off the wrong people." Elias glanced sideways at Gorvath, a towering reptilian warlord whose species had a long, ugly history with humans. Their last encounter had ended with Elias stabbing him through the hand with a broken bottle. They were still on speaking terms, though. He chuckled, setting his glass down. "Did we, though?" Gorvath's massive jaw stretched into a toothy grin. "You're an infestation. The Concordium will cleanse the filth from the stars. This time you cannot run." Elias exhaled through his nose, amused. "You think they scare us?" Gorvath barked out a laugh. "They have the largest fleet in the galaxy. One unified force. What do humans have? Scattered colonies? Mercenary crews? Smugglers and rogue traders?" He leaned in, eyes gleaming. "Your kind is weak because you have no unity. You will shatter, just like all the other species that defied them." Elias nodded along, as if considering the words. Then he pulled out his datapad, tapped a few keys, and turned the screen toward Gorvath. The warlord's grin faltered. The screen displayed a live tactical feed of a Concordium fleet entering orbit above Vega 9, one of humanity's outermost colonies. The feed had been intercepted by human hackers 30 minutes ago. Gorvath watched as the Concordium warships, pristine and gleaming, descended into position, preparing for a planetary bombardment. Except, the moment their fleet reached optimal firing range, something happened. The planet's surface erupted. Massive underground detonations. Chain reactions spreading across the crust like wildfire. The entire colony had been rigged, a planetary-scale trap. The Concordium fleet, too close to react, was caught in the blast. The shockwave shattered ships, tossed dreadnoughts like toys, sent debris spiraling into space. Within minutes, what had been a proud war fleet of 200 ships was reduced to wreckage. Elias tapped the screen again, zooming in on a single ship's distress signal. A Concordium admiral was screaming for backup. No response. He slid the datapad back into his pocket. "You were saying?" Gorvath's claws dug into the wooden counter. "That was an ambush. A trick." Elias grinned. "No. That was strategy." The warlord was silent, watching Elias swirl his whiskey. "See, that's your problem, big guy." Elias tilted his glass toward him. "You think we fight like you do? Like the Concordium does? You think we line up, pick a battlefield, throw fleets at each other until one side surrenders? But humans? We don't do that. We don't have a homeworld to protect. No empire to defend. You think we lost unity?" He chuckled. "Nah. That just means we don't have weak points." Gorvath exhaled sharply, his tail twitching. "You still cannot win. The Concordium has endless ships, endless armies. This is only the beginning. Elias's smirk widened. Exactly. At that moment, his comlink buzzed. He tapped it, leaning back as a familiar voice came through. Cade. It's happening. Elias stretched, cracking his neck. Yeah, I figured. Where's our first move? Sector 12 just collapsed. We wiped their comms. All of it. He raised an eyebrow. How much? Everything. Elias whistled low. You mean every Concordium fleet in the sector just lost their AI systems? Yup. They're flying blind. No coordination, no navigation. We're already hitting their supply convoys. Chaos is spreading fast. Elias let out a breath, rubbing his jaw. Damn. All right. Give me an hour. I'll round up some talent. Make it 30 minutes. This war's already started. The comm went silent. Elias set it down and stood up, stretching like he had just woken from a nap. Gorvath watched him carefully. You're truly insane. Elias laughed. You only just figured that out? The warlord exhaled, shaking his head. Even if you win battles, the Concordium will keep coming. They have never lost a war. Elias picked up his coat, slinging it over his shoulder. He turned back, locking eyes with Gorvath, and grinned. Neither have we. And with that, the war began. The Concordium's warships drifted, lost in the dark. Their once flawless formations shattered, their fleet commanders cut off from command. The cyber warfare assault had been devastating. Every ship, every system, every AI-driven protocol fried in a coordinated strike. The greatest fleet in the galaxy now floated helplessly, surrounded by a silence thick with something they had never known before. Fear. Admiral Exort clenched his mandibles, his 4 hands gripping the dead controls of his battleship. His flagship, the Unyielding, sat adrift alongside the remnants of his fleet. No communications. No targeting. No engines. Nothing. How did this happen? His second-in-command, Vice Admiral Rethkar, demanded, voice rasping through the emergency channels. A full fleet-wide system collapse in seconds? This is impossible. It's not impossible, it's human. Exortal's voice was low, his mind piecing it together even as panic rippled through his officers. The Concordium had always fought wars the same way, overwhelming numbers, tactical precision, ruthless efficiency. But they had never fought humans. Not like this. Admiral, what are your orders? Rethkar's voice had a tremor in it now. Hold. Exortal forced steel into his voice. We will recover. The humans must have exploited a weakness, but they cannot fight us ship to ship. We are still stronger. We will regain control and retaliate. The moment the words left his mouth, the first explosions began. From the shadows of dead space, the hunters arrived. Small, sleek human ships, built for speed and precision, not brute force, descended upon the disabled warships like wolves upon wounded prey. Without AI defenses, without fleet-wide coordination, the Concordium vessels were helpless. The humans didn't launch full-scale attacks. No. They dissected their prey. One ship after another, targeted surgically. Human teams boarded instead of bombarding, cutting through hulls with plasma torches, executing command crews before they even knew they were under siege. Intruders! We have human boarders on. The transmission cut to static. Security teams report. Another voice, another scream, then silence. We're losing ships. We're losing command. Exortal slammed a fist into his console. This wasn't war. This was slaughter. And then, a voice came through the emergency comms. Calm. Cold. Amused. Admiral Exortal. You there, buddy? Exortal's mandibles twitched. He knew that voice. The name had been whispered among Concordium ranks for years. A ghost. A menace. A human they had never been able to eliminate. Elias Cade. You're quiet, Admiral. That's not like you. Where's all that Concordium pride? Exortal bared his fangs. Coward. You attack from the shadows. You hack systems. You do not fight with honor. Yeah? You want a battlefield? Flags waving? Two neat lines of ships blasting each other until one side taps out? There was laughter in Cade's voice now. Sorry, pal. That's not how humans do things. See, you guys? You fight to win wars. We fight to end them. A silent alarm flashed across Exortal's console. A breach. His ship had been boarded. He rose to his full height, drawing his sidearm. His honor guard stood ready. I will see you burn, human. That's cute. But first, I got a question for you, Admiral. The emergency lights flickered. Heavy boots echoed down the corridors of the unyielding. How does it feel? How does what feel? Exortal snarled. To be on the losing side. The doors blew open with a deafening blast. Smoke and fire filled the chamber, and through it, human warriors emerged, black-armored, weapons raised, moving with the precision of apex predators. Exortal opened fire. So did his guards. It didn't matter. The humans moved too fast. Their weapons cut through Concordium armor as if it were paper. Exortal saw his men fall, one by one, and still he fought, roaring, refusing to give ground. Then he saw him. Elias Cade, walking through the chaos, a pistol in one hand, a blade in the other. He didn't rush. Didn't flinch. He smiled. Admiral, Cade greeted, stepping over the bodies. Told you we'd talk face to face. Exortal lunged, striking with all his strength. Cade twisted, sidestepping the blow, bringing his own blade up in one smooth motion. The Concordium Admiral's own momentum betrayed him. The human's knife slid clean between his ribs. Pain. Cold. Exortal staggered, vision blurring. Cade leaned in close. Here's what's gonna happen, Admiral. You're gonna die. Your fleet is gonna burn. And your people? He twisted the knife. They're gonna learn the same lesson every species learns when they push us too far. Exortal's knees hit the floor. His strength was leaving him. He choked, gasping for air. You thought we were weak because we don't have an empire. Because we don't follow your rules, Cade whispered. But here's the thing. His voice dropped to a deadly hush. We don't lose. Darkness swallowed Exortal's vision. The last thing he heard before oblivion took him was Elias Cade's voice, speaking over the fleet-wide comms. Hey, Concordium boys! Your admiral's dead. Your fleet's gone. Your war? A pause. It's over. You just haven't figured it out yet. The bridge of the Black Star Requiem was dimly lit, filled with the quiet hum of an active warship preparing for its next strike. Elias Cade sat in the command chair, one leg over the armrest, flipping a knife idly between his fingers. The fleet-wide transmission from the Concordium High Command was still playing in the background. The desperation in their voices was getting thicker. All forces are to regroup at designated fallback points. Sector 12 has been compromised. Priority is restoring command integrity. Static. Cade smirked. That's not happening. A hologram flickered to life beside him, displaying an encrypted call. The face of a woman appeared, sharp eyes, short-cropped black hair, and the distinct insignia of the Eridani Shadow Corps. Cade, it's done. We hit their war archive. He sat up, flipping the knife once before sheathing it. Anything useful? More than useful. Their entire war strategy was built around two assumptions. 1. That we'd defend our territory. 2. That they could sustain a long conflict better than us. Cade stretched, sighing. Well, that's their mistake. We don't defend. We destroy. And they sure as hell can't sustain anything now. The woman smirked. You're going to love this part. Their entire logistical framework depends on centralized supply chains, no adaptability. We crippled their AI systems, took out their command fleet, and now? She leaned forward. Their entire war machine is running on fumes. Cade exhaled through his nose. Beautiful. Another voice crackled in. Boss, we got movement near the Concordium fallback zone. Looks like they're trying to regroup. He rolled his shoulders, standing up. All right then. Let's remind them why that's a bad idea. The ship trembled as it exited slip space, and the battlefield unfolded before them. Dozens of Concordium warships, trying to rally, trying to salvage their broken campaign. Too late. Cade tapped his comm. All units on my mark. Make it fast, make it brutal. No countdown. No speeches. Just violence. The Black Star Requiem surged forward. The first Concordium dreadnought didn't even have time to react before human strike teams cut through their hull like it was paper. Explosions rippled through the fleet, turning their defensive formations into a maelstrom of chaos. Inside one of the enemy warships, panic spread like wildfire. Where is command? Why aren't they responding? Weapons offline. Hull breach, humans incoming. We need to retreat. No mercy. No escape. Cade's boots hit the ground as his team stormed one of the final battleships, weapons raised. The corridors were filled with the sound of desperate Concordium soldiers trying to hold their ground. It didn't last. He moved like a predator, cutting through resistance with brutal efficiency. His rifle dropped 2 enemies before he even spoke. You guys really thought you could win this, huh? One of the Concordium officers stumbled back, aiming a sidearm with shaking hands. Cade caught the movement and sighed. Don't. The officer fired. Cade sidestepped, closing the distance in an instant. His knife flashed, and the alien collapsed, choking on his own blood. The rest of the Concordium crew threw down their weapons. Surrender! One of them pleaded. Please! Cade exhaled. See, that's the thing. You never gave us that option. A single shot rang out. Silence. The last Concordium ship crumbled in the distance, its wreckage joining the graveyard of their failed invasion. The war was all but over. Cade stood among the bodies, tapping his comm. Status? All enemy forces neutralized. We're done here. He sheathed his blade, stepping over the corpses. No. We're just getting started. The Concordium had lost control. They just didn't know it yet. Elias Cade stood on the bridge of the Black Star Requiem, arms crossed, watching the wreckage drift across the void. The once mighty war fleet of the galaxy's greatest empire had been reduced to smoldering debris, floating uselessly in the black. The comms crackled. This is Supreme Commander Veilroth of the Concordium Third Armada. We request a ceasefire. Immediate withdrawal of human forces. We are prepared to negotiate terms. Cade smirked, tilting his head. Ceasefire? Oh no, no, no. See, you declared war on us. You don't get to wave a white flag just because you're losing. Silence. Then, the alien commander spoke again, voice unsteady. We recognize our miscalculation. We underestimated your resolve. Cade chuckled. That's putting it mildly. The line was silent for a moment. The Supreme Commander spoke again, more controlled. You cannot destroy the Concordium. Our resources, our power, it stretches across the stars. We will endure. Cade exhaled, shaking his head. I don't think you're listening, Veilroth. This isn't about conquering your empire. We don't want your throne, your planets, or your laws. He leaned in. We just wanted to watch you break. The alien's breath hitched, barely audible through the static. And now that you have? Cade grinned. Now? We make sure you never forget it. The moment he ended the transmission, the attack began. From the darkness, human strike ships surged forward. Not a full-scale invasion, not planetary conquest, this was surgical. Precision annihilation. Cade's fleet didn't need to burn the Concordium to the ground. They just needed to cut out its spine. Across a dozen key systems, human teams hit their targets. In the Concordium High Command Citadel, power flickered, and emergency sirens wailed. In their intelligence networks, servers crashed, decades of classified data wiped in seconds. In their economic districts, entire banking systems crumbled, financial records rewritten to show impossible debts. Every part of the Concordium's war machine, its bureaucracy, its control, all of it collapsed under an assault they never saw coming. Veilrotha's voice returned to the comms, filled with disbelief. You're dismantling our infrastructure. How? Cade leaned back in his chair, watching the destruction unfold. You thought war was about fleets and armies. About numbers and firepower. His voice was calm, steady. War is about leverage. More silence. Veilrotha's breath was heavy now. What do you want? Cade rolled his shoulders. I want you to live with this. I want you to know that when you declared war on humanity, you didn't fight an empire. He stood, staring into the wreckage. You fought something worse. Another pause. The Supreme Commander's voice was barely above a whisper. What are you? Cade grinned. A reminder. The transmission cut. And the war was over. The war was over, but Elias Cade wasn't done. The galaxy had to learn a lesson, one that would never be forgotten. The Concordium had ruled with arrogance for centuries, believing themselves untouchable, believing that order and law made them invincible. Now they had no fleets left to enforce their rule, no supply lines to rebuild their empire, no faith left in their own power. But that wasn't enough. Fear faded. Power returned. Cade knew that if they wanted this victory to last, the Concordium needed something stronger than defeat. They needed humiliation. The command bridge of the Black Star Requiem was silent except for the hum of machinery and the quiet murmurs of his crew. A single transmission was coming in, bouncing across emergency channels, reaching every Concordium system still standing. The face of Supreme Chancellor Dareth Karos flickered to life on the holoscreen. The leader of the Concordium, once the most powerful being in the galaxy, now sat slumped in a chair, his once imposing ceremonial armor scorched, his violet skin marred by sweat and exhaustion. His golden crown of office lay discarded at his feet. His eyes, dull with disbelief, stared at the camera. This is Supreme Chancellor Karos. He hesitated, swallowing thickly, hands shaking as they gripped the edge of his seat. I speak on behalf of the Concordium, to the humans. Cade folded his arms, watching from his command chair, expression unreadable. This was the moment that mattered. We acknowledge our failure. The words dragged from Karos's throat like they were being forced out with a blade at his neck. We underestimated you. We miscalculated. And for that, we have suffered dearly. Cade let out a slow breath, drumming his fingers against his armrest. That wasn't enough. He turned to his comm officer and gave a single nod. The next part of the broadcast played. It wasn't Karos's voice anymore. It was Concordium War Archives broadcasted across every known frequency. Reports of their invasion plans. Their War Council meetings. Their exact words before the war began. Humans are disorganized. Weak. They will not last the first assault. Their species lacks discipline. They do not have the mental or genetic superiority to sustain a prolonged war. By this time next year, their colonies will be stripped bare, their leaders kneeling before us. The words echoed, over and over, filling the silence of thousands of planets, reaching every species who had ever been forced to obey the Concordium. And then, the last part played. If the humans resist, we will show them why the galaxy fears us. Karos closed his eyes, face pale as the recording ended. He knew what this was. A reckoning. His voice cracked. We were wrong. We fear you now. Cade smiled. That was better. The Concordium had ruled through power and fear, believing they would always be the ones in control. Now, the roles had changed. We ask only for peace. Karos' continued voice hollow. A truce. We will not interfere with humanity again. Cade finally leaned forward, speaking for the first time since the broadcast began. His voice cut through the air like a blade. A truce? The Chancellor swallowed hard, nodding. Cade tilted his head slightly. And what happens in a century? 2? When your people forget what happened here? When they start to think maybe we got lucky, maybe the humans were just an accident in history? Karos flinched, but he had no answer. Cade continued. I don't need a truce, Chancellor. I need something stronger. Caros looked up, confused. I need your people to fear us. The silence stretched. Caros stared, struggling for words. What do you mean? Cade leaned back, resting his boot on the control panel in front of him, casual. You thought war was about ships, soldiers, and territory. It's not. War is about memory. Caros's fingers clenched. And what do you expect us to remember? Cade's smirk was razor-sharp. That we don't start wars. He let the words settle before delivering the final blow. We end them. Caros closed his eyes. He understood now. This war wouldn't be written in history as just another conflict. It would be a warning. A nightmare passed down through generations. The calm link severed. The Chancellor's final words would remain, playing in endless loops across the Concordium-controlled systems. They could try to delete them. Try to erase the humiliation. But there would always be survivors to remember the truth. Cade exhaled, stretching his arms over his head before pushing himself up from his seat. All right, folks. That's enough theatrics. We're done here. His second-in-command, a grizzled veteran named Vance, gave him a questioning look. No follow-up strikes? No demands? Cade chuckled, grabbing his coat from the back of his chair. What would be the point? He gestured to the holofeed still playing in the background, a visual of the Concordium's broken fleets, their systems in disarray. We already own them. Vance shook his head, grinning. And you think they'll actually stay down? Cade met his gaze, his own smile fading slightly. Oh, they'll think about getting back up. Maybe in 100 years, maybe 2. That's just how it goes. He slid his arms into his jacket. But if they ever do, they'll remember this war. And they'll ask themselves one question. Vance raised a brow. Which is? Cade smirked, heading for the exit. Do we really want to make the humans care again? He stepped through the doors, leaving nothing but silence behind him.